Quotations from myself, segment 62, quotation number 798. Though heroes are universally admired and even worshipped, fortunately they are not widely emulated, and deservedly so, for they have nothing helpful to teach the rest of us, the ordinary folks. The world full of heroes would simply self-destruct. Divergence of opinions, ideas, and beliefs, which is a hallmark of humanity, coupled with the unlimited heroic courage to defend them, would cause endless strife and war on everyone against everyone. It is the cowardly ordinariness that is the salt of the earth and the glue that keeps society together in a state of more or less peaceful, though admittedly precarious equilibrium. Most of the time anyway. 799. At the museum. Viewer. I don't understand this painting, and I don't think I like it. Critic. You don't like it precisely because you don't understand it. But after I explain it to you, you will understand and begin to like it. Viewer. But what if I still don't understand after you explain it to me? Or even if I do understand, I still don't like it. And does understanding always precede liking? Or even more, are they synonymous? Critic. Yes, in a certain sense. Viewer. Then is there anything you don't like? Critic. Of course there is. Viewer. Then you have to admit that there is something you don't understand. Or if you did, you would have liked it. Critic. But this is impossible. I must understand everything. I am a critic. 800. I have never met a man who, no matter how ill-informed he was, didn't have some set of ideas and beliefs, however primitive they might have been, and who, moreover, didn't feel obligated to support them, at least by some historical facts. And since man usually acts upon his belief, especially in the mass movements, the stuff the history is made of, the responsibility of the historians, because they are, though self-appointed, yet widely recognized custodian of such facts, is truly immense. Furthermore, if it is true that those who forgot the history are bound to repeat it, and considering what the history of mankind is, who would want to do that? The historian who not only omit, but also distort the historical facts, must be held primarily responsible for the forgetfulness and misconception of the rest of us. Yet such omissions and distortion are virtually inevitable as long as the notion of the collective responsibility is alive and well in mass psyche, and as long as the individual historians are bound by the ties to their respective national identities, which constantly impair their objectivity and impartiality. Thus, until a historian see himself as a cosmopolitan, and until his readers see themselves as separate individuals, bearing no collective responsibilities for the deeds of other members of their national group, the writing of history will always be subservient to the so-called national interest, the pernicious American phrase which is supposed to justify any act of a nation-state, no matter how despicable it is. when the truth becomes acceptable only and after it ceases to be perceived by the national group as a threat to such an interest. And while nation state exists, it's highly improbable. Also on a personal level, considering the overwhelming majority of historians today are employed by universities supported financially by the national governments, there is little possibility in the near future to see the changes in their attitude. 801. Coming from the old world, wrecked by 2,000 years of political, economical, moral, and religious strife, the Christian missionaries of 16th and 17th century had brought to the tribal people of the New World the spiritual cure for social moral diseases these people had neither time nor condition to develop or to succumb to yet. But ironically, the more their primitive society were getting civilized by the newcomers, the need for such original and unasked for, a largely unnecessary remedy became more and more timely. Yet paradoxically, just when their social conditions finally begin to make Christianity much more appropriate as a spiritual answer to their present needs, we witness among the native people the trend in opposite direction, an attempt to revive their native spirituality. Unfortunately, as a product of the way of life which almost totally disappeared by now, this artificial revival will probably be as futile and harmful to the native people today as Christianity was for them 300 years ago. 802. Quite often the overly eager advice is a sure sign of the unwillingness to listen. 803. The more universal a question is, the more particular an answer must be. 804. There are some people, I am one of them, who go through life as if being afflicted with a disease which could be tentatively called explain-gitis. That is, they feel compelled, instead of reacting to the events they are faced with daily, to primarily explain them on the logical and rational grounds, to the best of their abilities, of course. Personally, I suspect that the chief cause of this peculiar compulsion lies in a deep-seated insecurity and fear of the real world, which often seems dangerously illogical and irrational to them. So to cope with it, these people, me including, who see life not as a call for action, but as an endless chain of questions to be answered, live not by doing things, but mainly by constantly trying to find some plausible explanation for them, thus creating in the process the bubble of words to live and to feel relatively secure in. Needless to say, the slightest prick of reality might burst every now and then this bubble quite easily, but surprisingly it never discourages them to rebuild it over and over again. Of course, it's only human to look for an order amidst the overwhelming complexity of life, but it isn't the nature of any disease, explain-gitis including, to turn the normal into its opposite by grossly exaggerating it. 805. Most of the times you get an advice or information from others, not because they want to help you, but because they seize an opportunity to brag about their successes or are in need to complain about their failures. Otherwise, each one of us have to reinvent the wheel for oneself. 806. There is no trivia which is so trivial that it doesn't contain some elements of the profound. 807. Carpe cogitatio. Seize the thoughts. The thoughts which were never said or written down are like miscarried fetuses or stillborn babies. They have died before being given any opportunity to live. 808. On Heidegger's alleged inability to finish being in time, and I see a man sitting in a dark room holding an open book, which he cannot read because of the darkness. But neither can man close the book and put it aside, for he is the book, and the book is him. Nor can the man leave the dark room, for he is the room, and the room is him. And so as the man sits in a room he cannot leave. He cannot leave, turning the pages of the book he cannot read. And he waits and waits and waits. Suddenly the lights go on, and the man begins to read the page of the book. It's open, on at this time, somewhere between the beginning and the end of it. And as he reads, the man tries to understand what he is reading. And sometimes he thinks he does, and sometimes he knows he doesn't. Then, without warning, the lights go off, and the man and his book are surrounded by darkness again. And again, the man cannot read the book, and the book cannot be read by man. And they cannot leave the room, because they are the room, and the room is them. And all that they can do is to sit in darkness, blindly turning page after page, waiting for the next moment of light. But they know not when or if it will ever come again. And I say to myself, such is the fate of man. 809. I am a book in which even I can only read, every now and then, just a few often disconnected pages. As for the others, they will never get more out of it than some desultory sentences and words, always and inevitably taken out of context. 810. I see my mission in life, if I have any, as helping my fellow men to reconcile with theirs, rightly or wrongly perceived, shortcomings and failures. 811. The fate, or rather the curse, of a member of minority is to always live in a state of a nervous apprehension and dreadful anticipation of an insult or an injury, constantly devising the proper strategy, how to respond to it, and yet never being fully prepared to face it.